Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Agree to Disagree podcast. We've got a special breakout session for this episode. I am here with Krys Rankin. Krys, what can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Krys. I'm 35 years old. I live in Des Moines. Lived in Des Moines since I was 15. Lived in Hawaii, Minnesota before that. I have 2 kids. I'm a teacher, a special education teacher, and I have been a dumpster fire for a long time and got formally diagnosed with autism in May because I flippantly thought I would just rule it out. Obviously not.
It's May of 2025?
Yep.
Oh.
Just a few months ago.
For context, it is October 2025 right now. So I'm glad you're here. So, and that's kind of what we're here to discuss today. Last episode was about mental health. So I figured since my partner happens to be somebody diagnosed with autism and is pretty good speaker, somebody who's pretty confident and had enough courage to do this interview. So I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to kind of expand upon last week's topic, which was mental health. I'd just like to ask you a few questions. And I'm sure some people listening and watching to this are supremely interested as to what the experience might be like for someone who is in their mid-30s, who was just very recently diagnosed with autism.
It's trash.
So we'll dive right in.
Absolute trash. That's what it is.
So when you were diagnosed with autism, how did that change how you reflect back on your past as it pertains to relationships with others?
I think that's something I'm still processing, if I'm being honest, because that's unraveling and decoding and looking back on 35 years of shit that's been playing over and over and over and over in my head. And I mean, it's one thing to think your entire life that if I just tried a little harder, if I just stopped doing this, if I just could figure this out, maybe, and I don't know, there's a lot of blame and a lot of fucking shame on my part. And sometimes looking back on things, I'm like, if I remove myself from the situation and be like, this person has autism and this is what happened, I'd be like, well, yeah, that fucking makes sense. But I don't know. I mean, it's still impacting my relationships, and it's still, I mean, it's a really complicated thing to think that you know who you are as a human being just to find out, I don't know who the fuck I am. All the things that I thought were just quirks or bad behaviors or just weird mannerisms or things that I just was a freak at. It's like, I don't know, it's weird being told, hey dude,
I can imagine.
your brain does not operate on the same wavelength as the
Literally wired differently. When I think back to my past, it's kind of broken up into chunks or eras. You've got your very young formative years, and then you rocket right into school, whether it's kindergarten or whatever. And you find yourself immersed, in the social scene. You find yourself all of a sudden meeting new people, trying to make friends. And that was a stressful enough time for me as a neurotypical kid. So
I didn't make friends. I had a really hard time making friends. I don't know. I moved a lot as a kid. I moved to 2 different schools in elementary, 13 different apartment buildings before I was 11.
13?
3 different.
Or 11.
Before 11, yeah. Some of them I recollect and some of them I don't, like vaguely, but. And then moving to Minnesota from Hawaii, beautiful 80 degrees, to bumfuck Minnesota in the middle of winter and having a blizzard on my first day of school.
Climate shock, probably a culture shock.
Well, yeah, everybody was like Scandinavian and blonde haired and blue eyes. And here I am, this like little tan dumpling of a kid walking to school in this oversized coat, slipping on ice for the first time in my life. Fuck.
Sounds adorable.
Like, I wasn't going to parties on the weekend. I wasn't any of those things. So, like, what was I going to talk about? And all I ever did was watch animal documentaries half the time, or like Egyptology, and no other freshman girl wants to sit here and talk about how fascinating platypus are. So No, I did not have a lot of friends, and the few friends that I did have, I don't know, looking back, I'm like, "God, we should have sainted you for hanging out with me or something." I don't know. Sorry, Guy Howard.
Did you feel
Caricature.
different? Did you feel like there was something different, or was this just the way that it was for you? Did you have
I just didn't
anything?
I distinctively not remember understanding people. I remember, like, I didn't have a lot of, like, sleepovers as girls. I wasn't like, "Let's paint our nails, let's do this." I was like, wanna go outs" I yeah, I remember watching, like, TV shows of, like, what girl sleepovers were like, or, like, this notion of calling boys or I was like, "What the hell are we doing? Why are we doing this?" I remember really liking my friends who had pets because all I had were hamsters in our apartment. Um, so, like, petting a dog or petting a cat, and
You enjoyed that?
God, I sound so, like, weird stereotypical, like, "Oh, she'd rather talk to the animal."
Well, so far, it sounds a lot like my childhood. I mean, I was shy and introverted and moved, not quite as much as you moved, but
I read a
it's just a really
I
strange time for people.
read a lot.
Did you?
Like, I mean, I was going through 15, 20 books in a month, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, I would stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning reading. I read
That's a lot of books.
and that was on a light month, right? Like, I remember Harry Potter coming out, and I forget which one it was. It was one of the thicker ones, but I think I stayed up for, like, 12 hours straight and read it, and then I got done with it. My dad was like, "The fuck did I buy this book for? We should go return it." Right? "Let's fucking read it again." And I'm like, "No."
Read it again.
Yeah, I was like, "No, this is dumb."
I thought I read a lot, but yeah, no,
No, I
that's a lot. What about with the moving? Do you feel like the moving as frequently as you did that in any way aid in maybe masking the fact that you were not neurotypical? And what I mean by that is not having myself growing up and moving from school to school when I was really young, I found myself struggling to connect. It takes time to connect and find a friend group. And by the time I feel like moving that often, by the time you do finally connect and start establishing a friend group to which maybe these differences would be more obvious or become, apparent, you'd move. So do you think that moving as frequently as you did maybe had a hand in, I don't know, preventing a diagnosis from happening because the social circumstances that maybe would have been identifiable weren't present?
No, because in elementary school, I only had 2, one from pre-K until 1st grade, and that was, like, at an all Asian private elementary school. So all of us were a little odd in the first place, but I never had friends. I do remember that. I remember feeding finches. I didn't play with kids on the playground. They didn't wanna play with me. I don't know why. Sure I do. I was probably an asshole. Um, and then in 2nd to 5th grade at Sacred Hearts Academy, I had a couple of friends, but my parents were going through a divorce, and I don't think I obviously coped very well because I got grounded from the playground every Friday and put in this Gopal's office for swearing like a sailor in 3rd grade. And I had, like, my friends were, like, the odd ducks, I guess, in my class. Like, one girl was this, like, petite little thing named Kai, and then the other girl was, like, Chantel, who was really sweet, and she had mice, and I wanted mice. Um, and then there was a girl named Sam Tang who was the same mix that I was, Chinese and white. I was the only kid. My mother was incredibly messed up traditional Chinese lady. It was pretty racist. But I don't think that diagnosis was ever gonna happen living in Hawaii with my mother. And then by the time we moved to Minnesota, I went to a middle school and stayed with that group of kids. So from, like, 5th grade all the way through middle school, I did my freshman year in that middle school. Several fed into a big high school, but I was never gonna get diagnosed in school because I was a straight A student and I was social enough, right? Like, I mean, there were some weird things that I did. Like, what kind of fucking 8th grader dresses up like a Playboy bunny? Like, that's fucked up. Covert incest. Sure, worrying for that. But so no, I don't think that was ever going to happen because I was too high functioning. I mean, because I was able to talk and socialize and interact and make eye contact and watch and observe people and, like, looking back now, I realize how much of that was mimicking and how much of that was
Masking.
watching shows and I mean, because a majority of my high school career when I was in classes, I didn't wanna be there. I didn't wanna be around all of these people. I didn't wanna be around peers my own age. I was much more comfortable being around adults exponentially. I mean, for crying out loud, every day from age 15 until 20 something, I took care of, like, a woman that was in her 90s, and, like, I knew what to do with that, right? Like, she would listen to me, and there was no, like and I never had any, like I wasn't interested in I wasn't, like, fangirling and, like, going to concerts. I wasn't fucking yeah, like, a lot of the typical teenage things I just never did. I didn't find interesting, and coupled with the fact that, like, my dad would take us backpacking every summer for, week-long stints, like, there wasn't yeah, and I did, like, a lot of, like, gardening and canning and, like, I don't know, like, I don't think that was ever going to happen in high school. Sure as hell wasn't gonna happen in college because, like, performatively, I did just fine. I mean, I had a few breaking points there where it was quite obvious something was wrong with me, but something was wrong with me, there's a lot. But I think a lot of it was it's hard to distinguish at that time what was trauma, what was depression, what was ADHD, right? And the only reason I think the autism diagnosis came around was because my life fell apart and I was developing autistic burnout because it wasn't just like I'd been burned out as a teacher, like, right at the start of the pandemic, and all of that fell apart, but it wasn't until I was, like, almost broken as a human and unable to function, even going to the grocery store, fucking talking on the phone, being around my children, like, I would just being with my kids, that 50-50 custody split, when I didn't have them, I would lay in bed for 12 hours, 18 hours, like, I it was a level of physical exhaustion I had and mental exhaustion I had never known in my life,
Mm.
and I don't think that autism diagnosis would have ever I mean, because for the longest time, I was like, "I'm weird, but everybody's weird," right? Not eating a breakfast sandwich every day for 5 years straight, weird, not, fucking wanting to rip my eardrums out of the fucking core of my head, weird when I hear a fucking weird sound, right? Or, like yeah, there's stuff where it's like, I know it's not normal to do these things, right? Because I share them with a friend here or there, and they're just like, "Yeah, no, I don't do that." I'm like, "Nobody does? Nobody does. None of you people have experienced this." So, I forget what your question was now, but where are we going? Oh, you were asking me about, like, friends in high school, like, no. I had a really weird fucking upbringing, but part of that is I was raised by a fucking undiagnosed autistic man. I mean, that man ate a lot of Taco John's and knew every fucking location and had a map from a placemat like the placemat at the restaurant. Who saves that?
Your dad.
Fucking weirdo. Saved everything. The amount of Reader's Digest that were piled up next to the fucking kitchen table, the amount of, like, foil saved for, like, what? For what? For scrap metal? Are you fucking serious, dad? That's insane. The amount of screws and just, like yeah, looking back now, it's like, God, you were weird, dude. And not like, cute weird, but like, "Are you gonna kill me weird?"
Having this undiagnosed situation and, the belief that your father is also somebody who would
Well, we were always trying to, like, make sense of him because, like, I don't know, like, socially speaking, it was always, like, me and my sister I mean, at least for me, like, I remember kind of, like, compensating or constantly calling him out and being like, "Dude, you can't do this. Like, you're gonna get us in trouble. You're gonna get us killed. That's fucking weird or that's rude or whatever." And by no means
still
was he
adhering to social norms and things in public.
well, just, like, even thinking about, like, some of like, his patterns and ways of being, right? Like, I mean, take, for example, like, when we go backpacking, right? People are always like, "Well, what's the latest thing we can try to eat?" Or, like, "What's something delicious we can try?" Right? Like, I would always get the backpacker magazines, and I would always, like, see these new recipes for whatever. No, we ate the same mountain house beef stew, chicken and rice, beef stroganoff, lasagna, ramen. Like, that was it. That was all we were ever there was no deviating from it.
Pretty
And, like, in my brain, I was like, "Well, that's just how we do it, and that's how everybody does it." So, like, then I would read these magazines, and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, you should consider doing this, this, and this." But then in my brain, I was like, "That's so ineffective. No. Why would I pack out that much trash? Why would I bring these different items? That would require this." No, this is how we do it. This is the least amount of things that we have to carry up, something that we'd be willing to eat that doesn't taste like shit, actually tastes decent, right? And, like, he had figured out to, like, the perfect recipe of, like, how many containers of Tang we had left over and, like or, like, how many days we would have into it as long as we all didn't drink it. We were, like, allotted that, like, the 1 container of Tang that he would make. We were be given like, he would
exceptionally rigid.
count out fucking chocolate things to us. I mean, for crying out loud, he would, like, weigh us before going up into the mountains, coming down from the mountains, and, like, measuring half pounds. Bitch, I'm bloated and on my period. Why are you measuring a half pound? Fuck you, dude. So, yeah. Anyways, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. So what do you wish that people understood better about being an adult diagnosed with autism, especially one that was in their mid-30s?
What an absolute mindfuck it is. I'm having to go back and look at things completely different lens. Um, I am having to learn that there are things that I cannot do. And if I do them, will cost me greatly emotionally, physical health wise, relationship wise. And I know there's a lot of like stuff in Western psychology and theory about like, "Oh, I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that." And I follow a lot of different like Black therapists, people of color therapists, where they integrate a lot of indigenous ways of being and being able to hold space for multiple things. Like, what does repair look like with somebody who has trauma or who has neurodivergence? Because there are things that are kind of incompatible sometimes. Like I think about like marriages and relationships, right? Where it's always the silly notion that there's 50-50, right? A, that's bull fucking shit. I don't give a fuck who says that. But like, what do you do when your partner, like for example, dating me, right? Like I'm still in phases of autistic burnout and there are times where I literally cannot function, that it requires not just like pure will and discipline, but if I don't get 13 hours of sleep, 15 hours of sleep after having an incredibly difficult, like, emotional episode or mental episode. Like, it's no wonder after teaching special education for 13 fucking years and teaching mental health and kids on the spectrum the last 2 years that I lost my fucking mind. I mean, I'm in rooms with kids who and, like, the more I looked into this whole, like, empathy thing, the double empathy, right? Like, I mean, even today, my med provider, being as kind as she was like, "I hope you find a career where you don't overextend yourself and blah, blah, blah." And I'm sitting here going, "Oh, yeah." Because, I mean, I don't know. I think that's the hardest part about for crying out loud, I just got diagnosed in May. I don't know what the fuck half of this means, right? Like,
It's
I'm
fresh.
able to contextualize this for my students. We know what autism looks like in white male young boys and African American boys and nonverbal kids. We know what the fuck it looks like in somebody like me. Because I've been neurotypical passing for the most part. Maybe I was just that crazy bitch at the bar who had too much to drink. Or maybe I was like the frazzled mom on the playground with her fucking messy bun and her coffee, right? But I'm not. I am some of those things, but I don't drink anymore, folks, by the way. I'm not like that. Um, but yeah, and then you kind of get to the point where it's like I think about relationships and it's like you want somebody to take accountability for that. Well, yes, I want to take accountability. But if my brain doesn't process in that way and I'm unable to see that, it's not me like willfully not taking accountability. It's like I can't get that square piece to fit into that star-shaped hole in my head, no matter how much you fucking cram it in there. And fortunately, I'm very, I'm an English major, I write, like, a lot of those things, so I'm able to, like, read other people's stories or, like, listen to things and, like, gather this information and try to find some way to find connection or empathize or make some sort of, like, relatable way to it, but there are times where it's like, I can't get people to understand how sometimes I just want to crawl out of my skin and peel it off of me and not be a human anymore, and how many times I have felt like an absolute fucking freak in spaces, and I can't say anything about it. What am I gonna say, right? How many times I sat in teacher professional developments and I sat in these other places, like, my head fucking spinning and being like, "Do you people not see this? Do you not see how this is going to ripple effect down the road in 6 months and 3 months? Like, have you thought of this? Have you planned for this?" And I'd be asking all these questions, and they just kinda look at me like, "Bitch, why are you worried about this? What are you thinking?" And I can never articulate well enough this, like, and then we've talked about it before, like, that Indira's web spider net of shit that's happening in my head, that when we're having one small conversation about a disagreement you and I are having or something, it is so much more than that, right? Like, it's like I sometimes think about, like, I don't know, like, an analogy I have is, like, like, when you watch, like, satellite imagery, like, zoom out, right, on something really small, my brain's always at the fucking satellite
Mm.
imagery of things. It is never just in that one moment, because in that one moment is how that plays out into 7 different fucking scenarios, and how those 7 different scenarios play out into all of these different possible ways, and if this one ends this way and this one ends this way, but I can't account for this factor and I can't account for this, and time doesn't do that, and I think that's really, I mean, I've had 2 psychological evaluations done. The first one, motherfucker didn't catch anything. He was like, "Wow, you're really high functioning and you're really smart. Like, you just need some Adderall." Right? I mean, he wouldn't even diagnose me with ADHD, and I'm sitting here going, "Bitch, why do I leave all the kitchen cupboards open? I mean, you're the one shutting doors behind me.
You do that.
The fuck does that mean?" Right? You wanna talk about squirrel? You ever seen a grown ass adult who's not on Adderall in a room full of sped kids have a fucking literal squirrel behind me while I'm teaching? Fuck, don't even bother.
That'll derail the whole class, huh?
It drilled me, and then I turned around, next thing I know, I'm fucking narrating a squirrel's life, and he's, like, fighting with another squirrel, and I was like, "Maybe that's his wife, and maybe they're really upset, and the last therapy session didn't go well." And then we're fucking 30 minutes into the lesson, and I'm like, "You guys have learned nothing." So, yeah,
Yeah, fair.
I don't know. It's really hard, and it's really complicated, and it is really hard, particularly for women who have been given years of scripting and years of programming, and I have never described myself as a quiet woman. And then throw in the autism part of things, and I'm like, "Oh, I've kept a lock on this lid for years, motherfuckers. You don't know half the shit that's going on in my head that I wanna say." And fortunately, some of my coworkers, I felt safe enough, or my friends, right? But, like, so
What have you discovered about your strengths, or maybe about your unique way of experiencing life since your diagnosis?
the only strength that I can think of was my ability to remember what it was like to be a really scared little kid, or a really fucked up teenager, or a really troubled young adult. But it's sad to say this, because I realize I'm saying it out loud to, like, God knows who the fuck is listening, but, like, I'm really struggling to identify any strengths, right? Like, that empathy thing where it's like it has not only paralyzed me in some ways, but it has further allowed me to be exposed to shitty people. Because I'm like, "Oh, your situation. Oh my god, I can't imagine that." And then the next thing I knowing, I'm got a metaphorical knife at my throat of, like, being taken advantage of in different ways, right? And in that sense, it makes me very naive and stupid, because I see potential in humans, because I see pain and I see these things, and I try to give what I perceive as, like, grace and goodwill and, like, chances. Where other people are like, "Fuck, stay the hell away from that person, Chris." I'm like, "But what if?" Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I think about the strengths right now, I mean, one, that's why it made me a I think it made me a good educator, was because, like, I understood the pain that a lot of my students were going through, because I could literally feel it in my body. I mean, it radiated off of them, almost like fucking, like, I don't know.
So, okay, wow. So Having said all that, what's one key takeaway that you would like our listeners to come away with after this conversation?
Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. And all of us are raw talking like right now. So don't be surprised when some of us who have been following scripts and checklists our whole life realize, oh shit, well, that sucked. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, shit, no wonder I wasn't very good at this checklist. This was never built for me. I was trying to cram myself into a odd pantyhose when, you know, I just needed some really comfortable, chubby FUBU sweatpants or something.
I haven't heard FUBU in a hot minute, I think.
I didn't
A
need
metric
juicy.
minute.
I didn't need juicy written on my ass. I needed hazard. Stay back 10 feet. Don't talk to me.
What's one bit of advice that you feel most strongly to give if there is somebody listening that maybe has recently been diagnosed with autism, or maybe just feels as though they're just a little different? What's a bit of advice you can give them with the experiences that you've discussed with us tonight?
Try not to shit on yourself so much because maybe there is something to your intuition and something about yourself that you should be listening to. And I think oftentimes and it's probably out of human instinct and survival, being interdependent species, but like, at what point do you stop betraying yourself and figure out what sits right within you? I think about how many times this was always asked to me by my therapist all the time. Do you want to do that, Krys? I'd be like, no, I don't fucking want to do that. She'd be like, well, then why are you doing it? And I'd go on, fucking 10 minutes explaining why I had to do what I wanted to do. And how many times it's like, no, I don't want to do that. And over 35 years, that's almost what killed me, is doing things I didn't want to do because I wasn't listening to whatever that was inside of me that was like squirming and crawling and just like, I mean, I think about how many times and places I shrunk myself. And when I did actually like speak up or verbally express myself or go on a, spiel, and then I would shrink back and say, oh my God, that was too much. Oh my God, I'm so sorry I said all of that. Oh my God, how do I shove all of that back into my mouth? And I would tell people, I was like, can you just pretend this didn't happen? Can you just pretend everything I just fucking told you for a 45-minute set? Just pretend none of this came out of my mouth. And just the amount of like, oh my God, I am a weirdo, right? Or I am an absolute freak of fucking nature. I mean, even today at the grocery store, right? I don't know. I think that's the other part of it is we're not taught to have an intuition. We're not taught to listen to ourselves, particularly not in Eurocentric 20th century Christian American values. Is there is always someone else to report to. There's always someone else who is measuring your success, your effectiveness, your whatever. And at what point does it say, you know what? I feel good about this today and I think I did good enough? Because ultimately speaking, it's my body I have to live in. It's my body I have to go home to. And it has manifested its ways in so many psychosomatic symptoms. I mean, the amount of times I've been in the ER this year, the amount of weird fucking diagnoses and other things that have come up because I just assumed other people knew better than I did. That other people knew better about me than I did. Right? Because there's that fine line of like, well, yes, you need to take other people's perspectives into cue. But so much of my entire adult life was trying to understand what the fuck I was and what was wrong with me. And even now, when I first got that diagnosis and I had called my ex-husband, I said, I don't want to be autistic. I don't want this. Like, I can never fix this. And to believe like, and I would never say that to my students, never in a million fucking years. But there was nothing wrong with them. But for me to have the inability to say, like, it almost felt like a death sentence at first. But I will never, ever be. not only normal, but even like anywhere close. Like I will never be able to function the way everyone else seems to.
Hmm.
That this is not a world built for me. Like at one point I thought, fuck, I'm just gonna move to Alaska and be like Daniel Boone in the fucking woods with like 30 sled dogs and a garden and a pumpkin the size of a house. I was like, well, that sounds lovely.
I'm glad you didn't,
Well, yeah.
because you're here.
I want to be on your couch right now.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening and watching if you had an opportunity to do that. Really appreciate it. This Saturday, we'll be back to our regular format. Robert will be back from vacation, and we'll have our standard Jason and Robert conversation. Until then, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.